Solana is one of the most controversial coins on the market. On the one hand, it's a really popular project with a market cap of $100 billion, but on the flip side, a lot of people think that Solana has no future and that it's still alive only thanks to meme coins. It got me thinking, how can a project as popular as Solana have so many haters? So I did a little research. You're watching Crypto News, and today I'm gonna break down 3 things that are wrong with Solana. I'm not gonna go deep into Solana's history, but let me just explain its basic idea. So, blockchains have always had this one problem that slows them down. Every second, a lot of people are trying to make transactions, and the system has to waste a lot of time and energy just figuring out who's first in line. This is one of the things that makes most blockchains slow and kinda expensive. Then one smart dude came up with a fix. He built this pretty clever system that just adds time marks into the blockchain itself. So instead of wasting a ton of energy trying to figure out which transaction came first, the system already knows it, because each one has an assigned number. That guy's name was Anatoly Yakovenko, and his system is called Proof of History. And yeah, I'm obviously oversimplifying it to keep things short, but the main idea is that Proof of History became the core of how Solana works. Later on, the team at Solana Labs figured out how to mix Proof of History with Proof of Stake. This system is designed to easily handle thousands of transactions every second, so that's why you see it a lot in DeFi, NFTs and even crypto games. Solana was popular from day one. Just a few hours after the launch, the Sol token had already 5x in price, and its trading pair with Bitcoin became the most traded pair on the entire market that same day. But with all that success came a bunch of problems. People started calling the devs out, saying they were faking numbers, ignoring security issues, and that the network kept crashing way too often. So yeah. Let's talk about the main 3 things that are wrong with Solana. One of the biggest accusations against Solana is that it's all been fake it till you make it. A lot of people genuinely believe that Solana is built on smoke and mirrors, and that dozens of facts and metrics are intentionally falsified. I don't really agree with such an extreme take. But yeah, I've come across a few cases where the info was, let's say, not exactly true. So let's go through some of them. The first story goes back to just a month after Solana's mainnet launch. In the Telegram chat, one of the co-founders said there were 8 million Sol in circulation. But the thing is, no one could actually verify that, because there weren't any tools like SolScan back then. Anatoly Yakovenko, Solana's founder, said they didn't want to build their own tracker because they feared to become a single point of failure. Circulating supply is a pretty big deal in crypto. It basically shows how many coins are actually out there and tradable. You need to get the simple logic. The lower the supply, the more valuable each coin seems, which naturally drives the price up. But since no one was tracking Solana, people didn't have a way to really count its circulating supply. As the time passed by, Solana kept repeating that the supply was 8 million coins. On April 27th, the co-founder Raj Gokal even dropped a pretty important statement, saying we currently have no plans to do another 8 million release. But then things took a weird turn. At the end of April, someone from the community found a wallet holding 13 million coins. People were stunned. The founder had just said there were only 8 million coins in circulation, and now there's a wallet with way more than that. Something was clearly off. After that, Anatoly Yakovenko published a long article explaining what happened. He said that 11 million coins had been loaned to a market maker to help with smooth and fast trading. He admitted they messed up and apologized for all the confusion it caused. Anatoly also pointed out that lending coins to a market maker is actually a pretty standard thing and that it's supposed to help regular users. In the end, he promised to take 11 million coins out of circulation and burn them. He also said Solana had no plans to release more coins into the market, and if that ever changes, he would give everyone a heads up. It looked like the issue was settled. The head of Solana Labs admitted the mistake, apologized to the community, said he would burn the 11 million coins, and promised they would publicly announce it if they ever plan to release more in the future. Another co-founder backed that up too, saying there were no plans to release any new coins into the market. And what do you think happened less than a month later? Yep. The Solana Foundation released 8 million coins to the market without warning anyone beforehand. And remember that market maker that was loaned 11 million coins? Well, only 3 million were actually taken back. And then Solana proudly reported that they had burned 11 million coins. Let's sum it up. First, Solana's team said the circulating supply was 8 million coins. Then, when the community manually found that wallet with 13 million coins, the founder promised to burn 11 million and to never release new coins without a proper warning. But less than a month later, they literally broke that promise, releasing 8 million coins while only pulling 3 million back from the market maker. So basically, if earlier Solana claimed that the circulating supply was 8 million, then now it had doubled to 16, and half of those coins were sitting in a single wallet owned by a market maker that was closely tied to Solana Labs. To be fair, I think it's worth cutting Solana some slack. I think it's possible that they didn't mean to intentionally mislead people, and that's my personal opinion. But the fact remains, they made a clear public promise and broke it in less than a month. And trust me, this isn't the only time something like that happened. It's just the most obvious and easiest one to point out. There were other times when Solana got hyped up in the media, but then some enthusiasts destroyed it with facts. It seemed like the developers weren't necessarily lying, but the whole system looked like a house of cards. For example, about a year and a half ago, Sphere Labs put out a chart showing how fast Solana's USDC trading volume was growing. At first glance, it looked very impressive. The blockchain had grown 10 times in just 6 months. But not long after, user Was Crypto proved that those numbers were basically fake. Over 90% of the USDC trading volume on Solana was coming from just one platform, Phoenix. And what's the problem with that? Well, basically Phoenix counted every single order, even if it got cancelled or failed. And guess what? Of course, none of those orders that created the trading volume were completed. Someone was just spamming the system with fake activity, constantly creating new orders and leaving them empty. And you won't be surprised that it was all being done by just 2 accounts. Sphere Labs, the ones who made the original video, replied by saying the volume was real, but just not P2P. And I'm not trying to be mean here, but I really tried my best with this research, and I still don't get how you can call that real trading volume when 90% of it comes from failed orders on a single platform. Now, some of you might be thinking, what does Solana Labs have to do with any of this? It wasn't them showing off those stats, it was a third-party company, and you would be totally right. There is no solid proof that Solana Labs were actually behind the fake volume, trying to make the blockchain look better than it actually is. But the thing is, there are a lot of examples like this floating around Solana. Pretty much since the beginning there was a lot of hype about how fast, efficient and secure it is. But then later, it turns out that those claims weren't exactly true. If you're curious and want to dive deeper into stuff like this, check out the research by Justin Bonds and DB Crypto. They put together some really solid work that helped me a lot with this part of the script. I'll drop links to their articles down in the description. The second big issue with Solana is the network crashes. Yeah, of course malfunctions happen and that's completely normal, But with Solana, it's happened more often than most people are comfortable with. And what's even more awkward, some of these crashes happened in areas when the developers said Solana was supposed to be strong. Some of the clearest examples were when bots spammed the network with way too many transactions, and Solana just couldn't handle it. Everything crashed, and it took hours to get things back up. The first big case like that happened in September 2021. Some validators were receiving up to 300k transactions per second. The whole network went down, and stayed like that for 17 hours. Then in May 2022, it happened again. The network went down because bots were trying to mint free NFTs. This time, Solana was offline for about 8 hours. To be fair, the system held up a bit better than before, thanks to the past experience, but it still wasn't enough. After that, the developers decided to add a tax on every free NFT mint to slow the bots down. These days, Solana's been running pretty smoothly, without major shutdowns for over a year and a half. That is why the developers finally removed the beta label from the blockchain's name. But not everyone's convinced the problems are gone. A lot of analysts still believe that the outages will eventually come back. One of them is Mert Mamtas, someone with deep technical knowledge of Solana. Unfortunately, Solana's had its fair share of shady moments. Over the past 5 years, there have been around 20 incidents where someone found an exploit in the system. One of the loudest cases happened in February 2022, and it's remembered as the Wormhole incident. Wormhole is one of the largest cross-chain bridges, and that day someone figured out a way to trick the system. They basically requested to swap native Ethereum to WETH on Solana, but because of the exploit, they ended up getting 120,000 of WETH without actually sending any Ethereum in return. The total damage was brutal, around $320 million. Another rough incident happened in May of that same year. Every wallet that was created using the Slope app got completely drained. And it wasn't just Slope users. Even people who imported their Slope wallets into Phantom or Trust wallet got drained too. In total, around $8 million was lost. No one's really blaming Solana Labs for the fact that exploits happen. And when you look at the numbers, it's actually not that bad. Over the past 5 years, total damage from exploits on Solana adds up to about $500 million, which is actually 6 times less than what's been lost on Ethereum. However, a lot of people still criticize the developers, because there were just too many incidents. I was honestly surprised by how much hate Solana gets. Digging into all of this was super interesting, and I hope I managed to break it down. If you enjoyed the video and found something useful for your own crypto journey, please hit the like button, it really helps my channel grow. See you next time.